Captain Alex Rodriguez had been flying cargo ships for 12 years, but he'd never seen anything like this. The warning lights on his dashboard were flashing like a disco ball, and his engine was making sounds that definitely weren't in the manual. He was supposed to be delivering medical supplies to the mining colony on Titan 7. But right now, staying alive seemed like a more important goal. "Come on, baby, hold together." He whispered to his ship. The Phoenix, the old girl, had never let him down before. But the electrical storm they just passed through had fried half her systems. His navigation computer was completely dead, and the backup power was failing fast. Through the cockpit window, Alex could see a blue-green planet below him. It wasn't on any of his star charts, which meant he was way off course. The planet looked peaceful enough from space, with white clouds swirling over what appeared to be continents and oceans. But looks could be deceiving out here in the void. His fuel gauge showed almost empty. There was no choice anymore. He was going down whether he liked it or not. Alex strapped himself into his crash seat and activated the emergency landing protocol. The Phoenix shuddered as her remaining thrusters fired, trying to slow their descent. The atmosphere was thicker than he'd expected, and the ship began to heat up as they plunged through the upper layers of the sky. Emergency beacon activated. The computer announced in its calm female voice, "Prepare for impact in 60 seconds. 60 seconds felt like both forever and no time at all. Alex watched the ground rushing up to meet them. He could see mountains covered in snow, vast frozen lakes, and forests that looked dark and mysterious. This wasn't the tropical paradise it had appeared to be from space. This was an ice world. The Phoenix hit the ground hard, skidding across the frozen surface for what felt like miles. Alex's world turned into a blur of spinning metal and breaking glass. The crash harness dug into his chest, and his head bounced around like a ping pong ball despite the safety restraints. When everything finally stopped moving, Alex found himself hanging upside down in his seat. Blood was trickling from a cut on his forehead, and his left shoulder felt like someone had hit it with a hammer. But he was alive. And that was something. The emergency pod had deployed automatically during the crash, creating a small bubble of life. Support around his pilot's chair. The air was recycled and warm, a sharp contrast to the howling wind he could hear outside. Through the cracked viewports, he could see snow swirling in the dim light of an alien sunset. Alex unbuckled himself carefully and dropped to what was now the floor of his overturned cockpit. His emergency kit was still strapped to the wall. Thank goodness. Inside, he found basic medical supplies, emergency rations for 2 weeks, and a portable heater that would keep him alive for maybe 3 or 4 days if he was lucky. He cleaned the cut on his head and took stock of his situation. The main computer was dead, but some of the backup systems were still working. The radio was crackling with static, but he couldn't reach anyone. His emergency beacon was supposed to broadcast his location to any rescue ships. But the light that should have been blinking green was dark. Great, he muttered. Just great. Alex activated his portable scanner and pointed it outside. The temperature was dropping fast as the alien sun set behind the mountains. It was already minus 20 degrees, and the scanner predicted it would hit minus 40 before morning. His little emergency heater wouldn't be enough to keep him warm through the night. He had to try to fix the beacon. Without it, no one would ever find him on this nameless world. Alex pulled on his emergency suit and sealed the helmet. The suit would keep him alive outside for a few hours, but not much longer than that. The moment he stepped outside the pod, the cold hit him like a physical blow. The wind was fierce, carrying snow that stung his face mask like tiny needles. His breath fogged up inside his helmet, and he had to keep wiping it clear to see. The Phoenix looked even worse from the outside. Her hull was cracked in 3 places, and one of her engines had been completely torn away during the crash. But the communication array was still partially intact. If he could just get power to it somehow, he might be able to call for help. Alex worked for 2 hours in the bitter cold. His fingers growing numb despite the heated gloves, he managed to reroute some power from the emergency batteries to the radio, but the signal was weak and full of interference. He sent out a distress call every few minutes. but heard nothing back except the empty hiss of space as the temperature continued to drop. Alex realized he was in serious trouble. His suit's heating system was already running low on power, and the cold was seeping through the insulation. He had to get back inside the pod before he froze to death. That's when he saw them. Tracks in the snow round his crash site. They were almost human-like, but smaller and more delicate. Someone or something had been watching him while he worked. Alex's heart began to race. He wasn't alone on this world. The question was whether that was good news or very bad news. He followed the tracks with his helmet light, but they disappeared into the darkness beyond the wreckage of his ship. Back inside the pod, Alex sealed the hatch and cranked up the heater. His emergency supplies showed he had maybe 10 days of food and water if he was careful. The heater would last 3 days at most. After that, he'd freeze to death in his sleep. He tried the radio again, broadcasting on every frequency he knew. "This is Captain Alex Rodriguez of the cargo ship Phoenix. I'm stranded on an uncharted world in the Kepler sector. If anyone can hear this, please respond. I repeat, this is an emergency." Nothing but static answered him. As the night grew colder and darker, Alex found himself thinking about those tracks. In the snow, whatever had made them was still out there, probably watching him right now. He checked his emergency pistol, a small energy weapon that was standard equipment on all cargo ships. It wasn't much, but it might help him sleep better. The pod's lights flickered as the power fluctuated. Alex realized he was going to have to make some hard choices soon. He could run the heater all night and stay warm, but that would drain his batteries faster. Or he could try to conserve power and risk freezing to death outside. The wind howled like a living thing, and the temperature kept dropping. Alex pulled his emergency blanket tight around his shoulders and tried to think of a plan. He was a pilot, not a survivalist. He knew how to fly a ship through an asteroid field, but he didn't know how to survive alone on a frozen world. The radio crackled again, and for a moment, Alex thought he heard something that might have been a voice. But when he adjusted the frequency, there was nothing there except the endless static of empty space. He was truly alone, millions of miles from home, with no way to call for help and no way to leave. The reality of his situation began to sink, and he might die on this world, and no one would ever know what happened to him. Alex closed his eyes and tried to stay calm. Tomorrow, he would explore the area around the crash site. Maybe he could find some kind of shelter, or at least materials to improve his situation. Those tracks in the snow suggested there was life on this world. Maybe, just maybe, he could find help. But as the temperature continued to drop and the wind grew stronger, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Something was out there in the darkness, and it knew he was. Here, he just had to hope it was friendly. Alex woke up shivering. The heater had died sometime during the night, and frost was forming on the inside walls of his emergency pod. His breath came out in white puffs, and he could barely feel his fingers and toes. The portable thermometer showed -35 degrees outside, and it wasn't much warmer inside his small shelter. He tried to restart the heater, but the battery was completely drained. His emergency supplies were running low faster than he'd hoped. At this rate, he wouldn't survive another night. The cold was already making him sluggish and confused. Classic. Signs of hypothermia setting in. Alex forced himself to move around inside the cramped pod, trying to get his blood flowing. He ate one of his emergency food bars, though his stomach felt sick from the cold. The radio was still broadcasting his distress call automatically, but he doubted anyone would hear it out here in the middle of nowhere. He had to do something. Sitting here waiting to freeze to death wasn't an option. Alex pulled on his emergency suit again and checked the power levels. The suit's heating system had maybe 2 hours of juice left, 3 if he was lucky. He'd have to make the most of it. Outside, the world looked completely different in daylight. The sky was a pale blue-green color, and small moons hung low on the horizon. The landscape was beautiful in a harsh, empty way. Rolling hills covered in snow stretched as far as he could see, broken up by clusters of dark trees that looked almost like earth pines. Alex began searching through the wreckage of his ship, looking for anything useful. He found some metal sheeting that might work as a windbreak, and a few power cells that still had some charge. But what he really needed was a way to stay warm. Through the coming night, the tracks he'd seen before were still there, partially filled with fresh snow but still visible. They led away from his crash site toward a line of cliffs about a mile away. Alex stared at them for a long time, trying to decide what to do. Following mysterious tracks on an alien world wasn't exactly smart, but staying here and freezing too. Death wasn't smart either. He decided to compromise. He'd explore the area around his ship, looking for better shelter or materials he could use. If he found nothing, he'd consider following the tracks as a last resort. Alex spent the morning searching, but found nothing useful. The ground was frozen solid, making it impossible to dig. The trees were too far away to reach with his limited suit power. As the day wore on, his situation looked more and more hopeless. By afternoon, Alex was exhausted and starting to make mistakes. He dropped his scanner twice and had trouble remembering which power cells he'd already checked. The cold was affecting his thinking, making everything seem fuzzy and distant. That's when he saw movement near the tree line. Something was watching him from behind a cluster of rocks. Alex grabbed his emergency pistol and called out, "Hello? Is someone there?" No answer. But whatever it was didn't run away either. Alex could see a shape moving among the rocks, staying just out of clear sight. His heart was pounding now, both from fear and from the slim hope that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't alone after all. "I'm not going to hurt you," he called out. "I'm just trying to survive here." The shape moved closer, and Alex caught a glimpse of something that made his breath catch. It looked almost human, but smaller and more graceful, and it was definitely watching him. Alex's suit began beeping a low power warning. He had maybe 30 minutes before the heating system shut down completely. He had to get back to his pod, but he couldn't stop thinking about the mysterious figure in the rocks. Back inside his shelter, Alex tried to think clearly despite the cold that was seeping into his bones. Someone or something intelligent lived on this world. The tracks proved it, and now he'd actually seen one of them. But were they friendly? And more importantly, could they help him survive? As night fell, Alex's situation became desperate. Without the heater, the temperature inside his pod was dropping fast. He wrapped himself in his emergency blanket and tried to stay awake, knowing that if he fell asleep, he might never wake up. He must have dozed off anyway, because the next thing he knew, there was a soft sound outside his pod. Not the wind this time, but something else, something moving carefully around his shelter. Alex held his breath and listened. Footsteps in the snow, light, careful footsteps that circled his pod once, then stopped right outside the main hatch. His hand found the emergency pistol, but his fingers were so cold he could barely grip it. The hatch seal made a soft hissing sound. Someone was trying to get in. Alex's mind raced. He could shoot through the hatch, but what if whoever it was trying to help him? On the other hand, what if they weren't? He was too weak from the cold to put up much of a fight either way. The hatch opened slowly, letting in a blast of freezing air. Alex tried to point his weapon at the opening, but his hand was shaking too badly to aim properly. A figure appeared in the doorway, silhouetted against the starlight outside. It was definitely humanoid, but clearly not human, smaller than Alex. With a delicate build and smooth movements, the figure paused when it saw him, tilting its head. In a curious gesture, "Please," Alex whispered, his voice hoarse from the cold. "I'm dying here." The figure stepped into the pod and sealed the hatch behind it. In the dim light of Alex's emergency lantern, he could see it more clearly. She was definitely female, with pale skin that seemed to have a faint blue tint. Her hair was long and white, almost silver. But it was her eyes that caught his attention. They were large and dark, and they looked at him with what seemed like concern. She moved closer, and Alex realized she wasn't wearing any clothes. But strangely, she didn't seem affected by the cold at all. In fact, as she got closer, Alex could feel warmth radiating from her skin. The alien girl knelt beside him and gently touched his forehead with her hand. Her skin was wonderfully warm, and Alex felt some of the deadly cold begin to leave his body. She made soft sounds that might have been words in her language, but the tone was clearly soothing. Without hesitation, she lay down beside him and pulled his emergency blanket over both of them. Her warm body pressed against his, sharing heat that was literally saving his life. Alex had never felt anything so wonderful as that warmth flowing into his frozen limbs. "Thank you," he whispered, though he wasn't sure she could understand him. She made another soft sound and adjusted her position so that more of her warm skin was in contact with his. Alex could feel his body temperature rising, the dangerous cold finally beginning to retreat. For the first time since the crash, he felt like he might actually survive the night. As warmth returned to his body, Alex found himself studying his strange savior. She was beautiful in an otherworldly way, with features that were almost human but somehow more refined. Her skin had a subtle luminescence, as if lit from within. And that warmth she was sharing wasn't just body heat. It felt different, almost electric. The alien girl stayed with him through the night, keeping him warm and alive. Sometimes she would make soft sounds, almost like she was singing lullabies. Alex found himself drifting in and out of sleep, but for the first time since the crash, it was peaceful sleep instead of the dangerous unconsciousness of hypothermia. When he woke at dawn, she was still there, still keeping him warm. Their eyes met, and Alex saw intelligence and kindness in her gaze. She had saved his life, a complete stranger from another world. And somehow, he knew this was just the beginning of something extraordinary. Alex woke up feeling better than he had since the crash. The alien girl was still beside him, her warm presence having kept him alive through the night. But now, in the morning light filtering through the pod's small window, he could see her more clearly, and what he saw made his heart race with both wonder and concern. She was thin, much thinner than she should be. Her ribs were showing, and her face had the hollow look of someone who hadn't eaten properly in a long time. Despite her otherworldly beauty, she was clearly suffering from malnutrition. This mysterious being had saved his life, but she was slowly dying herself. When she noticed he was awake, she smiled at him. It was a sad, tired smile, but genuine. She pointed to herself and made a sound that was almost musical. "Kira," she seemed to say, though Alex wasn't sure if that was her name or something else entirely. "Alex," he said, pointing to himself. "I'm Alex." She tried to repeat it, and the way she said his name sounded like music. "Alex," she whispered, and then smiled again, this time with a bit more warmth. Kira sat up slowly, and Alex could see she was weak. She gestured toward the pod's hatch, then made eating motions with her hands. She was trying to tell him something. "About food. You're hungry," Alex said, understanding. "You need food." Alex opened his emergency rations and offered her one of his food bars. She took it carefully, examining it like she'd never seen anything like it before. When she bit into it, her eyes widened with surprise and relief. She ate the entire bar quickly, making small sounds of satisfaction. Watching her eat, Alex realized she must have been starving for who knows how long. He gave her another food bar, and she ate that one too, though more slowly this time. She looked at him with gratitude in her large, dark eyes. "How long have you been alone here?" he asked, even though he knew she couldn't understand his words. But, somehow, she seemed to understand his meaning. Kira held up 3 fingers, then pointed to the sky and made a circular motion. 3 years, maybe, 3 cycles of seasons. She stood up and walked to the pod's small window, pointing outside. Then she made a gesture with her hands that looked like something crashing or falling. She pointed to herself, then to Alex, then made the crash gesture again. "You crashed here too," Alex said. "The pieces starting to come together. Your ship crashed, just like mine." Kira nodded eagerly, happy that he understood. She went to the hatch and gestured for him to follow her. Despite the cold outside, Alex put on his emergency suit and followed her out into the snow. She led him away from his crash site, toward the cliffs he'd seen in the distance. As they walked, Alex noticed that Kira didn't seem bothered by the cold at all. Her bare feet left warm prints in the snow, and steam rose from her skin in the frigid air. Whatever she was definitely not human. The walk took about 20 minutes, and Alex had to stop several times to rest. His body was still recovering from nearly freezing to death, and the thin air of this alien world made him tired quickly. Kira waited patiently each time, watching him with concern. When they reached the cliffs, Kira led him to what looked like a crack in the rock face. But as they got closer, Alex realized it was actually the entrance to a cave, and not just any cave. This was clearly artificial, carved out of the living rock. Inside, the cave was surprisingly warm. The walls had a smooth, polished look that suggested advanced technology. And there, in the back of the cave, Alex saw something that made his breath catch. The wreckage of another ship. But this wasn't like his cargo vessel. This ship was sleek and beautiful, even in its broken state. It was made of some kind of metal that seemed to shift color in the light, and its design was unlike anything Alex had ever seen. It was clearly alien technology, far more advanced than anything humans had built. Kira walked over to the wreckage and placed her hand on the hull. The metal seemed to respond to her touch, glowing faintly for a moment before going dark again. She looked at Alex with sadness in her eyes, and he understood. This had been her home, her way off this world, and now it was as dead as his own ship. She led him deeper into the cave, showing him how she'd been surviving all these years. She'd carved out small rooms in the rock, creating a simple but effective shelter. There were tools made from salvaged ship parts, containers for collecting water, and even a small area where she'd been trying to grow some kind of alien plants. But it was clear she was fighting a losing battle. The plants were dying, her tools were breaking down, and she was slowly starving. Alex realized that finding him had probably been the first good thing that had happened to her in years. In one of the rooms, Kira showed him something that made his heart skip. Drawings on the wall, made with some kind of natural pigment. They showed her ship arriving at this world, filled with what looked like other members of her species. Then the drawings showed the crash, the others dying, and finally just her. Alone, you're the only survivor, Alex said softly. Everyone else died in the crash. Kira nodded, tears forming in her large eyes. She pointed to the drawings, then to herself, then made a gesture that clearly meant alone. She had been alone on this world for 3 years, watching her companions die one by one, slowly starving and losing hope. But now she had found Alex, and he could see something changing in her expression. Hope was returning to her eyes, the spark of life getting brighter. They spent the rest of the day in the cave, and Alex began to understand more about his mysterious savior. She was incredibly intelligent, able to figure out complex problems and adapt to survive in impossible conditions. She had managed to keep herself alive for 3 years on a world that had tried to kill Alex. In just one night, more importantly, she had abilities that seemed almost magical. When she touched certain parts of her ship's wreckage, they would glow. With energy, she could generate heat from her body, warming the cave to a comfortable temperature. And when she concentrated, she could make small lights appear in her palms, illuminating the darker corners of their shelter. As night fell, Kira showed Alex to a small room she prepared for him. She gathered soft materials from her ship to make a bed, and she'd even managed to get some of the alien technology working to provide heat and light. It was crude compared to what the ship had probably been capable of, but it was comfortable and warm. That night, as Alex lay in his improvised bed, he realized that his situation had completely changed. He wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He had found another person, someone who had been alone and desperate for far longer than he had. And somehow, they were going to help each other. Kira came to check on him before settling down for the night. She brought him some water she'd collected and purified, and she showed him how to adjust the heating system she'd rigged up. Her gestures were careful and patient, like a teacher showing a student. "Thank you," Alex said, meaning it more than he'd ever meant anything in his life. "For saving me, for everything." She seemed to understand his gratitude, even if she couldn't understand his words. She placed her hand gently on his shoulder, and he felt that strange, warm energy flowing from her touch. It wasn't just heat, it was something deeper, something that made him feel safe and cared for. As she turned to leave, Alex called out to her, "Kira, wait." She turned back, and Alex pointed to himself, then to her, then made a gesture that he hoped meant together. Her face lit up with the brightest smile he'd seen from her yet. She nodded eagerly, understanding completely. They were no longer alone. They had each other, and somehow that made all the difference in the world. 3 weeks had passed since Alex and Kira found each other, and their life together had fallen into a routine that felt almost normal. Every morning, they would check the water collectors Kira had built around the cave. Then Alex would work on trying to fix his radio while Kira tended to her small garden of alien plants that somehow grew in the cave's strange soil. Alex had learned to communicate with Kira through gestures, drawings, and simple sounds. She was teaching him words in her language, and he was teaching her English. Her voice was like music when she tried to speak his language. Though she struggled with some of the harder sounds, water, she would say, pointing to their collection containers, food, she would add, showing him the strange but nutritious fruits her plants produced. Friend, she said one day, pointing to Alex, and the word made his heart warm. But despite their growing friendship, Alex knew their situation was getting worse. The cave's heating system was failing, and they were running out of the special nutrients Kira's plants needed to survive. Winter was coming to this part of the planet, and the temperatures were dropping every day. That's when the miracle happened. Alex was working on his radio as usual, trying to boost the signal with parts salvaged from both ships. He'd been at it for hours, getting nothing but static and interference. Then suddenly, through the crackling noise, he heard something that made his heart stop. A voice, a human voice. "This is the rescue ship Northern Star calling any survivors in the Kepler region. We detected an emergency beacon from this area. If anyone can hear this, please respond." Alex's hand shook as he grabbed the microphone. "Northern Star, this is Captain Alex Rodriguez of the cargo ship Phoenix. I'm alive and I can hear you clearly. Alex Rodriguez, this is Captain Chen of the Northern Star. We've been searching for you for 3 weeks. What's your status?" Alex looked at Kira, who was watching him with curious eyes. She couldn't understand the words, but she could tell something important was happening. "I'm alive and relatively healthy," Alex said into the radio. "But I'm not alone. There's another survivor here, not human. She's from a crashed alien ship." There was a long pause on the other end. "Did you say alien survivor?" "Yes, sir. Her name is Kira. She saved my life. She's been stranded here for 3 years. Another pause. Then Captain Chen's voice came back, more excited now. "Alex, this is incredible. We're going to need to bring a full scientific team. But I have to tell you something difficult. We're running low on fuel because of the storm that brought us here. We can only make one landing, and our ship can only carry one additional passenger safely." Alex felt the world spinning around him. "What do you mean, one passenger?" "The atmospheric conditions here are terrible, and we're already overloaded. With emergency supplies, taking on 2 extra people would put everyone at risk. We have to choose." Alex stared at the radio, unable to believe what he was hearing. He looked at Kira, who was still watching him with trust in her eyes. She had no idea that rescue had come, or that it meant they would have to be separated. "How long before you arrive?" Alex asked. 72 hours. "We need those 3 days to prepare for the dangerous landing. Think about it, Alex. We'll need your answer when we arrive." The radio went silent, and Alex sat there staring at it. 3 days to make the most difficult decision of his life. He could go home to his old life, back to human civilization, safety, and everything he'd known. Or he could stay here with Kira, probably dooming them both to die when the winter storms came. Kira moved closer to him, sensing his distress. She placed her warm hand on his shoulder and made soft, questioning sounds. Alex realized he had to tell her what was happening, even though it would break both their hearts. Using their simple sign language, Alex explained that help was coming. Kira's face lit up with joy at first. But then confusion as Alex continued. He showed her that only one person could leave. He pointed to himself, then to the sky, then held up one finger. One person could go home. Understanding dawned in Kira's eyes, and with it came a sadness so deep that Alex felt it like a physical pain. She nodded slowly, then pointed to Alex and made the gesture for go. She was telling him to take the rescue ship and leave her behind. No, Alex said, shaking his head. I can't leave you here alone. But Kira was insistent. She pointed to herself, then made a sleeping gesture with her hands. Alex realized she was trying to tell him about something she'd never shown him before. She led him to a hidden part of the cave, where there was a strange pod-like structure built into the wall. The pod was made of the same shifting metal as her ship, and it hummed with faint energy. Kira placed her hand on its surface, and it glowed in response. She gestured to herself, then to the pod, then made the sleeping gesture again. You can hibernate, Alex said, understanding. You can sleep through the winter. Kira nodded, but Alex could see the fear in her eyes. She was afraid, but she was willing to face years of hibernation alone if it meant Alex could survive. Over the next 2 days, Alex struggled with his decision. He explored every option he could think of. Maybe he could repair one of the ships enough to get them both off the planet. Maybe he could convince the rescue team to take the risk of carrying to passengers. Maybe there was another way. But as he worked frantically to find alternatives, the reality of their situation became clear. The ships were too badly damaged to repair. The rescue team couldn't risk everyone's lives for 2 people. And the hibernation pod was designed for Kira's species, not for humans. On the second night, as they sat together in the cave sharing one of their last meals, Alex made his decision. But it wasn't the decision anyone expected. Kira, he said, taking her hands in his. What if we could find your people? What if they're still alive somewhere? Kira's eyes widened. She had never considered this possibility. She showed him to another part of the cave, where she had star charts carved into the stone. These weren't random drawings, they were maps, showing the route her people had taken to reach this world. Alex studied the charts, his pilot's mind working through the navigational data. You came from a system about 40 light years from here. If there are others of your people still alive, they might be searching for you. For the first time since Alex had known her, Kira looked truly hopeful. She pointed to the charts, then to herself, then made a questioning gesture. Yes, Alex said, we find them together. But first, we need to get off this planet. The next morning, when the rescue ship arrived, Alex was waiting for them with his decision. Captain Chen and his team were amazed to meet Kira, the first intelligent alien life form humans had ever encountered. She was shy at first, but her natural curiosity and intelligence soon won them over. Captain, Alex said, I know you can only take one passenger, but what if I told you that Kira's people have technology that could revolutionize space travel? What if helping her could lead to the greatest discovery in human history? Captain Chen looked at Kira, who was demonstrating her ability to make the metal of her ship glow with just her touch. What are you proposing, Alex? Take Kira. Alex said, I'll stay here with the hibernation pod. She can guide you to her people, and when you find them, they can come back for me. Alex, no? Captain Chen said, that's dangerous. You could die here. I've been dead since my ship crashed, Alex replied. Kira saved my life. Now it's my turn to save hers. But Kira wouldn't hear of it. She shook her head vigorously and pointed to Alex, then to the rescue ship. She wanted him to go. To be safe. That's when Captain Chen surprised them both. What if we could make room for both of you? We'd be taking a big risk. But if this alien technology is as revolutionary as you say, it might be worth it. Alex looked at Kira, and she looked back at him. They had found each other in the darkness and cold of an alien world. They had saved each other's lives and learned to communicate across the vast differences between their species. Now they had a chance to face the unknown together. Together, Alex said, using the word Kira had taught him in her language. Together, she replied in English, her musical voice making the words sound like a promise. The rescue ship prepared to leave the frozen world behind, carrying to survivors who had found something more valuable than their individual lives. They had found partnership, understanding, and hope for both their species' futures. The journey back to human space took 2 weeks, and every day brought new challenges. The rescue ship Northern Star was overcrowded with Alex and Kira aboard, but Captain Chen and his crew did everything they could to make them comfortable. More importantly, they were fascinated by Kira and eager to learn about her people. Kira had never been on a human spaceship before, and everything amazed her. She would spend hours studying the engines, the navigation systems, and the life support equipment. When she touched certain components, they would work more efficiently, as if her natural energy was improving their performance. "It's incredible," Chief Engineer Rodriguez told Alex one day. "When she puts her hands on the power coupling, our energy output increases by 15%. Her people must have a natural connection to electromagnetic fields." Alex watched Kira work with the ship's systems and felt proud of her adaptability. She was learning English faster than anyone thought possible, and her curiosity about human technology was endless. But he could also see the sadness in her eyes when she thought no one was looking. She was thinking about her lost people, wondering if they were still alive somewhere among the stars. "Alex," she said one evening as they looked out at the stars, through the ship's observation deck, "what if we find nothing? What if my people are all gone?" It was one of the longest sentences she'd spoken in English, and the pain in her voice broke his heart. "Then we'll face that together," he told her. "But I don't think they're gone. Someone as strong and smart as you doesn't come from a people who give up easily." When they finally reached the human space station at Delta Prime, the reaction was everything Alex had expected and more. Scientists, diplomats, and military officials all wanted to meet Kira. She was the first intelligent alien life humanity had ever encountered, and everyone wanted to study her, interview her, and understand her technology. But Kira found the attention overwhelming. She was used to the quiet solitude of her cave, not the bustling corridors of a space station filled with thousands of people. She would often retreat to the small quarters she'd been given, and Alex could hear her making the soft, musical sounds that meant she was sad or stressed. "She needs space," Alex told Dr. Williams, the chief xenobiologist who was leading the research team. "She's not used to crowds, and all this attention is making her uncomfortable." "But Alex, you have to understand," Dr. Williams replied. "This is the most important discovery in human history. We need to learn everything we can about her and her people." "And we will," Alex said firmly. "But we do it at her pace, with her permission, and with respect for what she's been through." It took weeks of careful negotiation, but eventually, Alex managed to get Kira the space and respect she needed. Instead of being studied like a lab specimen, she became a partner in the research. She worked with human scientists to translate her star charts and explain her people's technology. The breakthrough came when Kira managed to activate a piece of equipment salvaged from her ship. It was a long-range communication device, more advanced than anything humans had built. When Kira placed her hands on its crystalline surface, it came to life with a soft, pulsing light. "It's working," she said excitedly. Her English much improved after months of practice. "It's trying to find signals from my people." For 3 days, the device searched the galaxy, sending out messages in Kira's language and listening for replies. Alex stayed with her the entire time, bringing her food and water when she forgot to eat, making sure she rested when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her. On the 3rd night, something amazing happened. The device suddenly blazed with light, and a voice came through the speakers. It was speaking in Kira's musical language, and Alex watched as her face transformed with joy and disbelief. "They're alive," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "My people are alive." The conversation that followed lasted for hours. Kira spoke rapidly in her own language, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying, always animated with excitement. Alex couldn't understand the words, but he could see the emotion on her face as she reconnected with her lost people. When the communication finally ended, Kira turned to Alex with eyes shining with happiness. "They've been searching for me," she said, For 3 years, they've been looking. They never gave up. Where are they? Alex asked. 2 weeks' journey. From here, in the Vega system, they have a colony there. A place where survivors from different crashed ships have gathered. There are almost 1,000 of my people there. The reunion, when it finally happened, was everything Alex had hoped. 4 and more. Kira's people arrived in ships that seemed to be made of living light. Beautiful beyond description. When Kira stepped out to meet them, Alex watched from the observation deck as she was surrounded by beings who looked like her, all of them embracing and making those musical sounds. That meant joy in their language. But what surprised Alex most was when Kira brought their leader to meet him. The being was tall and graceful, with the same luminous skin and large dark eyes as Kira. When Kira introduced Alex, the leader placed a warm hand on his shoulder. "You saved our daughter," the leader said in perfect English. "We are forever in your debt." "She saved me first," Alex replied. "I'm just glad she's home." But as the days passed and preparations were made for Kira to leave with her people, Alex found himself struggling with emotions he hadn't expected. He was happy for her, truly happy that she would be reunited with her family and her civilization. But he was also going to miss her terribly. They had been through so much together. They had saved each other's lives, learned to communicate across the vast differences between their species, and formed a bond that Alex knew he would never find again. On the night before her departure, Kira came to find him in his quarters on the space station. "Alex," she said, "I have something to ask you." "What is it?" "My people want to establish peaceful contact with humanity. We want to share our knowledge, learn from your people, and explore the galaxy together. But we need someone who understands both our cultures. Someone who can help us communicate and work together." Alex looked at her, beginning to understand what she was asking. "We want you to come with us," Kira said, "not just for a visit, but as our ambassador to humanity. You would travel between our worlds, helping to build bridges between our people." Alex felt his heart racing. Leave everything he'd ever known? Travel among the stars with an alien civilization. It was terrifying and exciting and wonderful all at once. "What about my life here?" he asked. "My job, my family, everything I know." "You would not lose those things," Kira said gently. "You would gain new ones. And you would always be welcome in both worlds, always have a home among both peoples." Alex looked out at the stars through his small window. A few months ago, he had been a simple cargo pilot, transporting supplies between colonies and thinking his life was perfectly ordinary. Now he was being offered the chance to be part of the greatest adventure in human history. "Together," he asked, using the word that had become so important to both of them, "together." Kira replied, smiling that beautiful, musical smile that had first given him hope in the frozen cave. 6 months later, Alex found himself aboard a ship made of living crystal, traveling to star systems that had no names in any human language. Beside him sat Kira, now serving as the cultural liaison between their two species. They were heading to a new world that both humans and Kira's people would explore together, a partnership born from a chance meeting in the cold darkness of an alien world. Alex often thought about that night when he had awakened to find Kira, cuddling him for warmth. Neither of them could have imagined where that moment would lead them. To lost souls finding each other in the vastness of space, and from that simple beginning, building a bridge between worlds as their ships sailed through the stars toward new adventures. Alex realized that sometimes the best journeys begin with getting completely lost, and sometimes the most important discoveries happen when you least expect them, in the warmth of another being's kindness, in the cold darkness of the unknown.